Hello and welcome back to the Less Than Amateur Theologian. Hashtag I am Orlando keeps popping up, and I think there's a more theological explanation to what happened than what most people are willing to say or willing to look at. And so I'd actually like to take a look at ideologies behind the Orlando shooting. Now, the thing about interpreting religion is you let religions interpret itself. You don't add any other worldviews or anything into it. I mean, it's kind of like saying nihilism is just a matter of a person sitting in a corner who's angry at the world, rather than letting nihilism speak for itself as an atheistic school of thought. So, if you're going to properly assess something, let it speak for itself. And so that's what we're going to get into. We're actually going to get into the Quran, the Hadith, and then we'll go from there. Quick lesson though. The Hadith, for those of you who don't know, is a collection of sayings of the Prophet Muhammad. And Muslims use these to understand the revelations of the Quran. And it gives them guidance as well. So if you don't understand something in the Quran, go to the Hadith. If you don't understand something in the Hadith, go to the Quran. It's that simple. So here we go. Let's move. And so what I have here is the Quran. I'm going to start at about verse 80. And let's just read and let the Quran say what it says. And it starts out saying, "And we had sent Lot, and when he said to his people, 'Do you commit such immorality as no one has preceded you from among the worlds?' To which it said, 'Indeed, you approach men with desire instead of women, rather you are a transgressing people.'" So here Lot's basically pointing finger at him saying, men are approaching men instead of women. Men are sleeping with men. That sounds like the traditional view of Sodom and Gomorrah, where people said what fell upon them was a punishment for homosexuality. But let's move forward and see what they are saying here. "But the answer of his people was only that they said, 'Evict them from your city. Indeed, they are men who keep themselves pure.' And we saved him and his family, except for his wife. She was of those who remained with the evildoers." Here's the kicker. "We rained upon them a rain of stones. And then how was the end of the criminals?" Then see how was the end of the criminals. It's interesting, because right here Allah is saying that he rained stone upon Sodom and Gomorrah, basically, or wherever it was Lot was. I mean, if we look at what belief was at that time, this is Sodom and Gomorrah being retold, basically. And so basically, the place where Lot was, this being the third revelation of Allah, and Allah abrogates his previous revelations. That's what actually happens, according to Muslims. Allah abrogates any previous revelations. So at this point, Allah is basically re-revealing the story of Lot in Sodom and Gomorrah, saying that they were men with men. You approach men with desire instead of women. So it's men with men engaging in acts of homosexuality, and Allah's final thing was to rain stones upon them, to basically hail damage them. How do we understand this? What does this mean for the average Muslim? So let's go up to the Hadith, Abu Dawud, and I'm looking at what in some places is 4448. Some will call it 4463. Some will call it 113. Just depends on how you're referencing this. Yes, referencing the Hadith is a mess, but when you can finally figure out what you're looking for, it'll be under one of those. "If a man who is not married is seized committing sodomy, he will be stoned to death." So even though this is a weak translation, this is calling for the death of homosexuals, especially those caught in the act. So what does this mean? Could this Florida shooter have been acting upon the word of Allah? Could this be his motivation? Some say that he himself was struggling with homosexuality. But Is it not written that you die a martyr in Islam, that you get 70 virgins? Maybe for him it's 70 male virgins, but it says 70 virgins either way is the reward for dying. So it's interesting because whether this guy struggled with his own homosexuality or not, what we're actually seeing here is we're seeing a command from Allah in their holiest of holy texts saying that homosexuals are to be stoned. Now, people will come back and say, but the Christians say, well, Christians have a different view of the Old versus the New Testament. Instead of being revelations of abrogation, God's doing a new thing. It's progressive revelation. And if you want to go back and you want to look at Leviticus or Deuteronomy, these were commands to Israel at a time when they were setting themselves up as a fundamentalist society, a society based on the worship of God. Anyone doing anything other, of course, would have to deal with whatever consequences. So in that case, yes, they would be stoned as well. But it's the New Testament, which Christians believe was the final revelation. That's the one that we actually look at. And let's see what they say. The most blatant passage is Romans 1. And so it says, circa 24. Therefore God gave them up to uncleanness through the lust of their own hearts to dishonor their own bodies among themselves. They changed the truth of God into a lie and worshiped and served the creature more than the Creator, who is blessed among men. For this cause God gave them up to vile affections, for even their women changed the natural use, also in some cases referred to as the sexual use, that which is against nature. Likewise men also, leaving the natural use of the woman, burn with lust towards one another, men with men working that which is unseemly, receiving themselves the recompense for the error which is meet. And even as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, God gave them over to a reprobate mind, to do those things which is not fitting, or which are not fitting. So at this point what we have is we actually have God saying, okay, you guys want to live a homosexual lifestyle, I'm going to remove my hand from you, and I'm going to let whatever happens, happens. My protection's gone. Do what you're going to do. And so that right there is the command of the Christians, is that when a person chooses that, we recognize that God's protection has left them, and that basically at that point in time, they've turned themselves over to something else. They're no longer putting God first. Now, I'm not saying that that's license or anything to pull Westboro Baptist Church, which they completely abuse Scripture. But the Christian view on something like this is that if someone is gay, someone is lesbian, someone is trans, bi, any one of the 50,000 new things they have, we're to recognize that they're making a choice here. We're to respect their choice. And when possible, the Great Commission is to go preach the gospel to everything. So when the chance arises, yeah, show them about Christ. But ultimately, we are to respect that person. What's this have to do with the Orlando shooting? Well, as I showed previously, he probably should have been throwing rocks, but bullets is all he had on hand, so that's what he did. Small metal rocks is basically what he did. And this is certainly a command of Allah. This is certainly backed up by the Hadith. This is certainly something that in the holiest of holy scriptures for the Muslim, there's no way you can say that there's any other prescription for someone who is practicing any form of sodomy, any form of homosexuality. This is less than an amateur theologian saying, pray for Orlando, pray for the attacker, pray for those out there who are following such a flawed and hateful ideology.